podcast we're doing, Whining On. Today we have Guy Collins. Guy, for people who don't know, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I'm Guy. I'm Guy Collins. I'm a street performer. I've been street performing for, since 1987.
You old bastard.
Yeah. And I'm currently in Rockville, Maryland, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C., and I'm staying in. So there we go.
Fair enough. And what kind of work do you do?
What kind of work do I do? Well, I'm a juggler. I'm a comedy juggler. And I walk.
You're a tosser.
And I walk on. I'm a clever tosser. And I walk on a slack rope held by people. And there you go. Really.
Cool.
It's all about bringing people together, and obviously in this times of trouble, then I'm kind of sharp.
Well, are we essential is the question. Just people who didn't know, when I called him a tosser, I wasn't just calling him a tosser. I mean, most of us guys have had those moments, but it's a term in juggling. So you have contact juggling is where the ball stays in contact. Tossing is where you throw it around, just in case you didn't know. No, so before we go to the... Okay, it's a forcing habit.
Of course, yeah.
So just before I go on to talking about shows and performing and history and pitch and stuff, you're in America. How's America? What's going on with the Craig right now?
Well, it looks okay. As I look out the window, there is very little movement at all. Everybody is staying in, basically. This is quite a nice neighborhood, so people walk around it and wave to each other. A lot of people are sat outside on their steps and sort of having picnics and stuff.
Whiskey and a shotgun, I assume, since it's America.
What's that?
I thought, well, it's America, whiskey and a shotgun, surely.
Not around here. That's more Vermont. But around here, it's more sort of craft beer. And
so America does have a middle class then.
Yeah, yes, it does. Yeah.
So why did you get into street performing then, Guy?
Why did I get into street performing? I started traveling in France, and I just learnt to juggle. This was when I was 90, and I just learnt to juggle. And my friend and I decided we'd go on a hitchhiking adventure. And so we set off. And we got as far as Paris and went to the campsite in the Bois de Boulogne. Lots of people have probably stayed there. And we came across some German hippies.
We are hippies, y'all. If you like to do the juggling, it's very good, y'all.
And they said that we could make some money juggling on the metro. So we went down to the metro with them. And we started. Sorry, Brian just sent me a message. Just put me right off.
Brian said he bet you're not funny, but then Brian did do an hour of the shopping channel the other night.
Brian has never forgiven me because we once did a festival in Guernsey. It was a street performers, and it was a competition. It was a street performers competition in 1997. And Brian was in it, and I was in it. Dave was in it. I remember Ozzy was there as well.
Dave Stubborn, he's in next week.
Yeah, Windsor sort of organised the whole thing. And it had several categories, and one of the categories was comedy. And I actually won
that. Are you saying that Brian's a bit of a sore loser?
Ever since then, he's never thought I've been funny. Ever since that day.
So for people who don't know, Brian Reed is another street performer. He's an incredibly good writer, very, very funny guy. Prides himself on his comedy since he's not the best juggler in the world. And it must have cut him deep, the fact that someone who is a good juggler and would see themselves as, if I'm wrong to say, probably a juggler first, comedian second. Is that fair?
Definitely. Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
So it must have stung him deep. And I'm sure he feels very good about you saying it to him again, broadcast to the many, many thousands of people I'm sure who are watching.
Oh, I love Brian.
We all love Brian. Brian is the troll that you'd like to have living under your bridge.
So,
So,
yeah, that was
you
good.
met the Germans. The Germans said, we must go and do a show on the public transport. We will make much money. It'll be good, yeah.
I wish it was that good, but actually, what happened was I ended up playing the bongos first of all. So I would
Are
bang the
you
bongo
fucking
drum,
hippie?
yeah,
Yeah.
literally like that. And then there was another one. One of us, I can't remember his name. He was actually Austrian. He was an Austrian vegetarian. If you want to watch them, he played guitar. He was actually very
Yeah.
good on the guitar. And there was another one that played the trumpet. And then there was this guy Jurgen, who'd been in India far too long and was actually wearing an orange lungi.
What's a lungi?
Lungi, it's a piece of cloth that goes around your It's like a loin
It's,
cloth.
it's like a lower sari. It's like a sari without the top bit. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And he wore that all around Paris and stuff. And my friend
Was he shoeless? Was he shoeless?
Yes, he was shoeless. Yeah.
Yes, I suspected so.
Yeah.
So you're with these guys. You're playing the bongos. You've got the hippies around you. You're on public transport.
Yeah, and then I started juggling 3 balls. So we did that on the metro for a few days and literally made enough to eat. Then we started working the terraces, all 5 of us together in, I think, where it was exactly, in Châtelet, I think, in Paris. And
Yeah.
that was good. And I would go around and collect the money from the punters and occasionally juggle a little bit. But fortunately, the guy that could play the guitar and the guy that could play the trumpet were good. So
Yes.
we managed to get away. And then we all went off down south to well, I think we had to leave the campsite because none of us had paid the bill. So we jumped the train.
Fucking hippies.
Got as far as we could, and then I think we started picking cherries. We picked up another couple of people, another sort of couple of hippies in Apt, which is in the south of France, just above.
Yeah. So you were forming some kind of collective at this point.
Yeah, they were like
traveling.
Yeah, and we went to the place where what's that place called? Avignon. We all ended up in Avignon because we'd heard back then that the monks would come out once a day and feed everybody. So we all descended there, and there were loads and loads and loads of hippies. Everybody lived under the bridge at that time.
So you didn't go for the festival? Because when I hear Avignon, in case anyone doesn't know, Avignon has a huge performance festival once a year there. Very, very famous nowadays. So was the performance festival there then? You just didn't know, or?
Just didn't know back then. I was really naive. So,
yeah, as you would be at 19.
Yeah. All right. Brian's asking me to take my hat off, and I'm not going to take I'm growing my hair, Brian. I'll post a PayPal link. I'll post a PayPal me link, and if you pay me £5 in there, Brian, then I'll take my hat off.
Well, on that note, I will quickly say, if anyone would like to support this show as it progresses, support me getting wine. I did find out today that the food bank has wine. Amazing. I didn't know. I've got a lovely, lovely dessert wine from the food bank today because no fucker would drink that. And I got this lovely, lovely little red. But unfortunately, at some point, the booze will run out. So if anyone does want to support the interview, support the podcast, support this strange little street performer in his isolation, we do have a PayPal. I will be putting it at the end of the video. We do also have a Patreon. I'm going to stop talking about that now and let's carry on chatting about everything else. So you're in Avignon. You've gone to the monastery. You're waiting for the monks to come down and give you some food.
Yeah, we're waiting for the monks to come down. And also we performed as a 7-piece group together, which was great fun. But there were a lot of the buskers in Avignon. I remember actually watching a couple of mimes, and their crowd build literally was just to put their makeup on. And there's a massive square outside that Palace of the Popes. And I think that was when I first saw my first real street show. Actually, I might have seen the Fat Man in Paris, Ludo, beforehand.
Okay.
When we were in Paris at the Pompidou Centre.
Yeah.
So I may have seen him.
Isn't it strange? You don't see as much these traveling groups of performers, the sort of hippie groups, 4 or 5, all on a big gap year or on a holiday away or travel. You don't see those little troops anymore. The last time I think I saw one in London was the Cyclone Circus, which is a 4-part circus that travels around on tour bicycles.
Oh, cool.
And they're musicians and jugglers, really cool. And they'll go to a place, they'll stop the tour bikes, they position them like this, they put a rope between. One lady plays violin on the rope while all the other guys do a band and little juggling stuff between. I thought it was beautiful. And you don't see that much anymore, do you? You know?
No, you don't. No, it's a shame. I think it's. I think when you start off performing as well, it's sort of something people do when they start because they don't realise that they can do well on their own. And
yes.
I think after a while, that sort of stops, which is a shame.
Do you think it's because
really good fun?
We've all got too professional, maybe?
Okay. Is my mic not loud enough? I'm not really sure.
So, Ian, I think Ian's saying I'm okay. You think he's saying don't speak into the mic more. If we're having problems with his sound, you can comment. We will try and address it. For now, I'd say let's just keep going. I'm going to try and keep the volume. I think the problem is if I raise my volume, it saturates my microphone. So, yeah, you don't see that much anymore. That's a bit disappointing. So you've done that. You've gone there. You've seen these other guys. You've got the inkling of what could be. What happened then?
Well, then we went and picked cherries with some gypsies for a while, which was very interesting.
It was.
For about 2 weeks. And then after that, we went to Canet Plage and San Ciprian, which is on the east coast of France, sort of on the Mediterranean, right on the Spanish border. And I picked a girlfriend, which was good, and everybody else sort of left. And then I sort of hung out with her on the beach for a while. And
okay, sounds lovely.
Was also started juggling on my own, and I kind of got taken in by this Portuguese fire eater. And he basically showed me how to do a show. So
the crowd builds, the gathering, the setting the edges, the structure.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, he taught me how to work the terraces. So,
so what's the difference between working a terrace?
Sorry.
So what's the difference between working a terrace and working a standard circle show?
Apparently, there's about 30% of your volume going in and out.
I'm moving closer now.
Well, the difference between the terraces and doing a circle show is one, the terraces are there already, and you are kind of imposing upon them. So you have to do it in a way that's, good. I mean, I haven't done this for so long now. It used to be really popular. Whereas with working a circle show, it's a completely different matter. I mean, you literally have to draw the people in one at a time.
So would you say it's more of a stagey experience working on a terrace? You go out there, you do your big hits, you go bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I heard this interesting thing when I was on performers.net when I was beginning, when performers.net was performers.net. And as a young street performer, just sitting there with long hair and smoking too much dope, something's changed, drinking too much. What I did, I just sat there doing contact juggling. So I wanted to look and see what other people did, what people thought. And so I looked at someone describing what street shows are. And the way they describe a street show dynamic as opposed to a stage dynamic was that on a stage, you give them something and then they give you something back in return. Whereas with a street show, you ask them to give you something and then you reward them by doing something for them.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. That's very good. That's very good. I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So who's your favourite show on the circuit at the moment then?
My favourite show on the circuit at the moment?
Yeah.
Ooh. Don't really know at the moment. Who's my favourite? I always like to watch Jim and Alex when they work together.
Some of my favourites.
Yeah, I just love the way they work together.
I describe them as the Morecambe and Wise of street performance.
They have a great chemistry, though. They work really well together, and they have some they've just got some classic bits. They're great.
Yes. And I think Alex is really Alex keeps Jim's negativity in check, and I think Jim keeps Alex's helps Alex balance himself out when he's working as well. They're a really beautiful team to watch work together. To watch two performers complement each other so well, and they really do. They really do complement each other well.
Yeah, they're great. They are really, really good together. Other than that, I can't think of anybody that really stands out. I mean, I think we ought to say congratulations to Alakazam and to Jim because they've just been the inductees of the Busker Hall of Fame today.
Round of applause.
Uh-huh. Oh, people are asking me about stories from Key West.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, definitely. I've never worked it. Please tell us.
No, I lived in Key West for 9 years, from 2001. I lived there from November 2001 until June 2010. I was quite lucky because I got to Mallory Square and I started working, and Gazzo, bless his heart, took me over to what was the Hilton Hotel, which was on the other side of the bridge from Mallory Square.
Yeah.
And said, these people are always looking for performers. And so I did a little audition for them, and the guy took me on straight away. So basically, I worked in Mallory Square for 2 weeks, really, before going over to the Hilton. And I stayed there for 9 years, 8-9 years.
Fair enough. And so, it's is the Hilton the better pitch? Is that the set? Because I'm unsure of the system they have there.
No. Mallory Square is the better pitch, but I used to get paid to work at the Hilton. And
fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, you can't complain that, can you? It's always nice to have a bit of a guarantee.
That was fucking great. Yeah.
And to be honest, your work is something which it has something mine doesn't. I mean, mine's trashy as fuck. I doubt I will ever get asked to perform at the Hilton. But your work has this. It has this kind of, once again, like Jim and Alex, the Morecambe Wise, the entertainment kind of thing to it. It has this beautiful polish to it, and everything is delivered with a comfortable confidence. That which something like myself, or if you look at people like Rumpole fucking things up every Tuesday, oh crikey, wouldn't get. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying. But if you want to go back to Key West, I used to work next to this guy called the Catman. Dominic
the Catman.
The Catman, who has performing cats.
So is it like a budget Tiger King?
Yeah, complete with the mullet as well.
Okay, excellent. Does he have the eyebrow ring?
No, didn't have the eyebrow ring, but he was a dirty old bastard. He really.
I approve. I approve.
No, you don't approve. No.
Really?
No. He used to. They used to have to share the storeroom with him, and occasionally he would. Well, quite often he would show me pictures of himself naked with his girlfriend, which was one thing. And he lied to me.
This
He said he had a
more and more like the Tiger King.
And the other thing he showed me these designs for these sex machines. And just these contraptions which he wanted to strap women in, and then, oh my God, you had to see it. I had to share that room with him for 8 years.
I bet it opened your eyes to many things.
Yeah, and probably some things that I never ever want to see again. Really, genuinely.
Harnesses of different kinds.
And it used to wind me up all the time because he'd do the show and he'd have these cats, and people would. He's famous. People would come just to see him, and I'd be on my big unicycle juggling fire, like big tricks like this, and people would just completely ignore me. Oh, look at the cats! Look at the cats! The cats are so lovely. Like this. Yeah.
So was he kind of like an echo of what the internet would become then? Yeah. A tidings of things that will be.
He's still there, and he's still terrible.
I bet he needs harnesses now.
Oh, it's like being on a bad acid trip watching him. He's got this cat called Oscar, and he shouts, Oscar, Oscar, Oscar. come on, hurry up, take your time, like this. And I'm sure when I die and go to hell, his laugh will be the laugh of the devil.
Give me a kind of impression if you can.
Oscar, Oscar. Come on, hurry up, take your time, take your time. Oh, it's just madness.
He sounds great. I want to go and see him now.
Oh,
So are you saying if you're in Key West, don't miss the Catman?
No, don't miss the Catman. Preferably with a large rock.
So clearly you don't miss the Catman.
Yeah. No, but there's no, I don't miss him at all. There's some other good acts down there. There's a guy I really used to like was a guy called Jeep, who still works down there. He used to have a dog that used to walk on a tightrope.
I've seen him. I've seen video of him.
Yeah, and then his dog would collect money from people's mouths. Brilliant money maker. Brilliant.
I bet.
Yeah, but then unfortunately the dog died and he got another one, and that wasn't quite as good with the people. It would occasionally.
Problem with animal shows.
Yeah, I once went round to Jeep. Jeep lived in a truck, and he's got a wonderful attitude for life. He said to me once, he said, "Guy, as long as I make enough for a bag of weed, 6-pack of beer, and a couple of hookers every night, I'm happy." And bless him, that was exactly how he lived his life, and probably still does. But I remember going round to his truck one night to see him. He was parked around the corner from me, somewhere near the laundry. And I knocked on the door, and he came in, he invited me, and he was just wearing a pair of gold swimming trunks. Big fat pot belly, and I think at the time he was probably in his 60s. Long hair, and sure enough, there were a couple of girls on either side. Again, brilliant.
Guy, come in. So did you have fun that night?
I didn't stay for long.
Who was the name of the guy that used to work in New York? He was, I've heard stories. No, he's still working there. If you go on the live feed, you can see him there. He was there, I think, a week ago. There was a guy in the 80s, early 90s. He was a comedian, and I heard that other shows had to stop performing when he was around because people would crowd around to watch him. And he'd do comedy, and then he'd count the money in the show to see if he had enough to get the crack he wanted for the day. And if he didn't, he'd just carry on.
It wasn't Albert Owens, it was Charlie.
Oh, you're right, it is a Charlie.
It's Charlie. I can't think of his name. Brian can help me out.
We've been doing a lot of this in videos. Me and James spent at least a quarter of the video going, it's when you get men over 30 trying to remember things.
He was... I have been self-medicating as well. He had his own little bit in... what was the cop show, Miami Vice, as well?
Yes.
There you are. Charlie Burnett. There we go.
Charlie Burnett, thank you very much. Thanks, Brian. I heard a story of him. Apparently, he did a comedy competition with I can't remember his name now. He was but he LA Cop TV, very famous. He did Delirious. His name is
TV Cop.
Eddie Murphy.
Oh, Eddie Murphy.
So apparently they did a comedy competition, and it was Charlie Burnett and Eddie Murphy. And they were both head-to-head in the final, and Charlie was going to win. But Charlie didn't know how to read or write. And so that was the only reason Eddie Murphy won, and Eddie Murphy had this huge career, and Charlie went to work back on the street. He had a joke, apparently. He said, man, I'm so scared of AIDS, I wear 2 condoms. Guess what he died of?
AIDS.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
There you go.
Didn't wear enough condoms, did he? Perhaps he should have put a condom over the needle. Hey, it's the internet. We can get edgy.
Oh, that's just sad. Yeah.
Well, let's move along. Let's get something happier. Let's talk about something nice. So Edinburgh's cancelled.
Yes, Edinburgh is cancelled. Not that I was going to go anyway, but yeah, Edinburgh is cancelled.
I was going to go, and if things kind of tied by, I might go again.
Okay.
It was Saturday. So Brian is informing us about the Charlie Burnett story. It was Saturday Night Live. I don't know if that's Brian stuttering in type, but I think Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And it was Eddie Murphy. I've got down to the last two. Charlie, come to read, and he couldn't read. There you go. Brian, the font of knowledge. Brian, I have to have you on the interview at some point. So, Guy.
Yes.
Why the USA? Why did you leave our lovely little island?
I was born here. I was born in Marietta, Georgia, which makes me a redneck.
You're a Yank.
Yeah.
You're a Yank.
I'm not.
But
I think technically the Yankees are up north, and I was born in the deep south, so I'm a redneck.
Yeah. Unfortunately, on this little island, you're all Yanks to us.
I left when I was 5, and then I grew up in England, and then I didn't.
Troubles at home.
Yeah. Well, my parents were English, and then I didn't come back here till I was 33, I think, and that's when I moved to Key West. Yeah, and I've been here ever since. But,
so Key West. Let's get into a bit of pitch politics. Key West, as far as I'm aware, is an autocracy. Am I right in thinking that?
Well, I can tell you I'm not entirely sure what you mean.
So autocracy, by that I just mean that it's the rule of the people. Rule is handed down. So the people who were there originally are the people who get the biggest cut of the pie, and the people who are there the newest get the smallest cut of the pie.
That's exactly right. What happens is there's a series of buckets.
Okay.
So there's the there's the grandfathers who literally are grandfathers now. In fact, great grandfathers, which is basically Will Soto, who's the tightrope walker, Jeep, Dale, I think. Not sure who else. Will gets his own spot. Jeep kind of has his own spot, so he gets his own spot because he needs it to put his tightrope up. Bearing in mind also that Will Soto has retired at least 3 times, and the city have also had a big public party for his retirement.
Oh wow! So he's respected in the community.
He's in the community. Yeah. So no, he's respected in the community. He gets the prime spot, which is literally on the corner, overlooking the sunset, and that's his. And normally there's a bagpiper. I forgot the bagpiper's name. It's not really important. It's a bagpiper. Bagpiper, and I
Scottish viewers.
Because when I first moved there, I'd moved from Glasgow. I lived in Glasgow for a year just before I left the United Kingdom to come to America. And so I get to Mallory Square, and the first thing that happens to me is, right, I'm next to a fucking bagpiper, which I thought was a little bit ironic. And
can't escape them. And the bagpipes are a particular kind of instrument where no matter how far away they are, it never sits in the background. The sound always penetrates, and it's always there in your consciousness.
Horrible. Absolutely. So Will basically gets his own spot, and then there's a spot for the grandfathers. And to be a grandfather, I think you have to be there for at least 25 years. It might be 30 years. Then there's a bucket for people who've been there for 20 years. And then there's a bucket for people who've been there 15 years. Then there's one for 10. Then there's one for 5. And then things start to get a little bit vague.
And so, what do you think of that? Do you think it's a fair system to have the old guys having their place, or do you prefer the Covent Garden system where everyone goes in the same bucket, so to speak?
No, I prefer the Covent Garden method. The Covent Garden method is much, much better. It's much fairer for everybody. Also, it keeps people on their toes. Some of the acts in Key West are not the best.
I saw a video of a guy who said at least 32 times during his show, I need to get some drugs, so let's hurry up. Which is funny the first time, but, it's like...
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the older ones really could up their game quite a lot more. And I think if you had a fairer system, then...
They'd have to.
Yeah, they would. And maybe not all of them would stay so long. So I mean, it depends how you look at it, really. What's the other place? Boston isn't a wonderful system either when it comes down to it. I mean, Boston.
Having a bitch fest. Let's hear it.
Well, it's not. Covent Garden actually has the fairest system in the world. You turn up if we know you can do a show, you go on the list.
Yes.
And that's all that matters. If somebody can vouch for you, if somebody's seen you before, or if we just think you can do a show, and normally we know straight away, then you're in the bucket. You can get in. You're straight away. These other ones, Boston, Baltimore, I've worked as well. They have these audition systems. Well, fair enough. We have auditions for the inside pitch of Covent Garden, but not the outside.
Inside, yes.
And okay, so you pass your audition, then you get in on their program, and everything is done a month before. So there's not so much spontaneity as we had in Covent Garden. It's just, it's not.
Is the community there?
It's like
does Boston have a community?
Excuse me.
I mean, Covent Garden has a community. Because sorry, is my cigarette annoying you?
No, I just burped.
Yeah. Fair enough. So Covent Garden has a real community. I really feel that. Guys on pitch, we're friends. We go to the bar together. We meet every morning. We have chats. We discuss all the choices we make together. There's a real sense of equality there. The oldest and the youngest, the most powerful shows to the weakest shows. Everybody has sort of a equity together. Do you have that in Boston? Does Boston feel like that?
Everybody, the one thing they have a very, very strong sense of community.
Well, that's a very good thing.
Which is good. And once you're in that community, they make you feel very welcome.
But do you have to murder a virgin to get in there?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Show me the body.
It's difficult to find a virgin in Boston. But yeah. So once you're in, they have a really, really strong sense of community. One thing that is very different from the Boston community to the Covent Garden community is nobody drinks.
Nobody drinks?
Nobody drinks.
What?
Yeah.
That seems like madness.
Turning up and Brian, the guy that does the roller bowler, was there, and he said, "Oh, do you want to come for a drink?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "I fucking love you."
Well, at least you found someone reaching out within that group.
Yeah.
I thought in Boston, does Al not? I expected Al to be kind of a party guy, and no.
No, they're great guys. They party. They just don't drink. They don't smoke. They're
healthy.
They're healthy. They're incredibly healthy. Yeah.
Fucking losers. They're losing. They don't know what they're missing.
They certainly don't. Look at us. Look at us.
My liver's hurting. My lungs are throbbing. They don't know what they're missing. Cheers to that, people. Cheers to cycles of self-damage.
No, I love the Covent Garden way. I think it's great, and I think it's great the way that sometimes we'll go in and then we'll all just go to the pub and we all hang out together, and it's really really nice. It is a real community.
Yes, it is.
And we look after each other, and we're really good about looking after each other.
Well, one of the great things, I mean, a few years ago, I was quite ill, and I'm not going to talk about it too much now. Save it for another video at some point. But I couldn't work. I was bedridden for a good amount of time. And every couple of weeks, one of the guys would come with a handful of money and put it in my hand and say, just make sure you're okay. Yeah. And that's been done with so many performers. Yeah. It's not something that any of us need to do, but we want to do it because we're a family. We care for each other.
And it's something we've always done. I remember before I left, when we were living in Stamford Hill, so it must have been 98, 99. I remember I broke. Was
it primarily Orthodox area then as well? Sorry for everyone. I'm sure you don't know Stamford Hill. Stamford Hill right now is an Orthodox community, Jewish Orthodox community.
Oh, it was an Orthodox community then too.
Yeah. Fair enough. So carry on anyway.
Yeah, and I remember we lived in a 3-story house. I had the top floor with Joe, and then Ben had the middle floor, Ben Langley, and then Brian lived on the floor below that, and then there was a kitchen, and below that we had this big sort of living room basement that went out onto the grass. I'll tell you where it is. You know where AJ's ex-girlfriend's boat is, the marina there?
Yeah, I do.
Park, yeah, overlook there. Yeah.
Oh, wow, how lovely.
And our neighbour was Ken Campbell.
I don't know who Ken Campbell is.
Oh, he was a playwright and comedian.
Okay.
But I remember I broke my leg or something there, and we used to have parties. And I remember Dave Evans turning up with a bag full of money for me like this. Went, there you go, mate.
People have done.
And you know that. I mean, it was. I can't remember. It was nearly 400 quid or something. And he said, you know, it's always much bigger the hat when we do a benefit. And it's
well, I did this for Brian. I did the same thing for Brian. I did a benefit for Brian about 2-3 years ago, and I did my record hat, the best I'd ever done, and I handed it over to Brian with some pleasure, and also like, fuck you, Brian, you know, a little bit.
No, I did one not so long ago for somebody, and I didn't even count it. I knew it was huge. I looked at it and I went, "That's more money I've made for ages," and I just handed it.
But just to draw away from us worrying about money and back onto the concepts of street shows a little bit, I think that when you're doing a benefit show, you're not thinking about the worry of what you have to pay for. And I think that audiences can smell that. They can smell the worry.
Well, it's always very true that, you know, when you turn up and you've got no money whatsoever and you go out to do a show, you
know that very well.
Make any money. You never make any money. And yet when you've got loads, you go out and you just muck around and it just comes to you.
And I'll say this, I said it before. I think this is my theory on it. I think that an audience is an empathetic organism. I said this in the last video with James as well. I believe that the audience, when they're watching you, they're enjoying what you're doing. They're watching the tricks. They're impressed. They have their cognitive mind at work, but their subconscious mind is empathizing with you. And so that's why, for example, if someone walks through the middle of your show and you go, you know, if you go, and you're happy and you're enjoying the fact that, oh, this is an opportunity to be funny, people will laugh and they'll like it. If you turn and go, oh my fucking God, how fucking rude. What the fuck are you doing? Then the audience will leave. And it's because it's not that what you said offended them, but it's a bad taste. It's a bad empathy. They're looking at you and they're feeling you suffering, and it's unpalatable. They move away from it, you know?
I think that's, yeah. I mean, I think half the art of being a good performer, full stop, not just street performer, is just being able to fake it.
Fake it or simulate. You know, some people, and I think Al does this. I watched Al many, many years ago working on the South Bank, and he walked off and I said, how was it? He went, that is the best show I've ever done. And it was on the South Bank. It was midweek. I doubt that was the best show he's ever done. But I feel like within him, the way he deals with his psyche, his perspective on the world is that every step he takes is the best step he's ever taken. And that's the way he operates. And when I saw that, I thought, yeah, fucking fair play to you, power to you. This is something which works for you. And every time you go out and do a show, you have faith in yourself. You're having a good time. You believe in yourself. And that's testament to him and the way he controls his psyche. Right. You know, God, I'd wish to be able to do that. I've walked out so many times. It's always a struggle for me. When I walk out, I think, oh, fuck, this is going to be fucking hell on earth. And you've got to get yourself out of that. I've had it so many times. So many times. Particularly in my kind of...
I think I'm now of the opinion, but now I'm older, that if you don't want to do a show, don't do a show.
Sometimes you have to do a show, guy. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes there's no pennies in the bank. Sometimes you need to buy booze. You need to buy food.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from, but it's not going to happen. If you don't want to do a show, it's not going to happen. You know, you have to want to do it.
You can make a couple of quid if you force yourself. You might not have a good time. You might not make a lot, but you can force yourself through it. I know because I've done it 1,000 times. But yes, yes. So I talked in the last video with James a little bit about false jeopardy.
Oh, yes.
And false jeopardy is basically when you have reality TV shows and things like this, and those reality TV shows edit things in a way to create a drama which wasn't necessarily there. I was just wondering what you think about this thing. Do you think that reality TV should be something which is real, or should it be something which creates some false jeopardy of some kind?
I think that reality. I don't know. I mean, reality TV is kind of. I don't really watch TV, which is a bit of an issue. Um, Especially when amongst some of my friends who are on TV, which really pisses them off. But reality TV is false jeopardy. Yeah, I think it should be. There should be false jeopardy. They're making TV. I mean,
Okay.
what do you want? I mean, I've done fairly. I mean, you could say the competition that I won was reality TV.
I mean, I have put a community host chat about it. I mean, I don't know how much you want to talk about that, how much you want to give away about the process of it. I wasn't going to force you to, because I know that sometimes things are best left, the mechanisms are best left hidden in the machine.
Well, no, I mean, Brian seems to think that it was all set up. I don't know if it was or if it wasn't. I know. I mean, I can talk about it if you like.
Yeah, I mean, just to give context, Guy was in a show called Street Cred. Street Cred was, Penn and Teller Fool Us. They did a Teller, because Teller, believe it or not, used to be a street performer when he began.
Other way around. It was Penn.
It's Penn. Is Penn's a fat guy?
Yeah. Well, not anymore.
Oh. Penn Jillette, yes. So it was Penn Jillette. So everything I've written down is wrong. I've got the wrong guy. Fair enough. So Penn Jillette, he used to be a street performer, and so they did a pilot of a show called Street Cred, where they go into Boston and they film street performers covertly, and then there'd be a panel of celebrities giving their, elbows and arse in the ground opinion about what street performance was. And Guy won a very, very handsome cash prize in that competition. Guy, if
$10.
Yeah, I bet that helped.
It did actually. Yeah.
So, False Jeopardy, this program. Let's talk if you're willing to.
No, so they create drama. I mean, if you're making TV, you want to create drama. I mean, of course you do. It's entertainment, isn't it? And you want to get people in. I mean, they also work on advertising. So, unless you're creating drama, people aren't going to watch.
But do you think there's a responsibility of television to represent the truth in some way, to give an accurate depiction of reality?
That program, Street Cred, was actually done in a very fair way. He didn't slag anybody off particularly.
No.
He made everybody look good. There was
very much so.
Complete opposite almost of what's the thing called?
Big Brother or Britain's Got Talent.
Talent programs, yeah. It's all about making. It was all about making people look good.
Yes,
and that was very clear, and it was very clearly stated to me after I won the money, because it wasn't filmed then, that they would make me look good. So that's a huge difference, because there was no false jeopardy there. They literally filmed the acts. They filmed the people. They said, this is what these people are doing. They can go on to do this. He's doing really hard stuff here, or this guy's doing stuff here. He's using standard line, and it was an honest.
I mean, Penn Jillette described you as the epitome of what street performers should be. Is, I believe, the words he used in the program, which is a wonderful thing from a very, very successful artist. It's not, couldn't have a bigger compliment, really, could you?
No, I know. It was great. That show has made me. I think that's got me bookings for the last 5 years.
And it should do. You're a capable entertainer.
I mean, that is my publicity.
Yes, and it's great publicity. I mean, it's almost worth more than the cash prize in the end.
I think it has been. Well, it has been. Definitely, it has been. I can definitely say that. Yeah.
Would you do Britain's Got Talent?
No.
No? Why wouldn't you?
One, I'm too old. And two, I'm too jaded.
That's it.
Three, I wouldn't sign anything that I've heard so many bad stories about it. I just wouldn't.
Yeah, me too.
Wouldn't do it. No. I mean, I think
So
it
in
works
terms
for
of
some people. I would suggest if you're young and talented, then yeah, you can do it. Do it. Go for it. But my age, I'm 52 years old. I mean, come on. And not only that,
the ball back though, yeah.
I have a career. You know, I mean, I might not be the richest person in the world, but I have work, and I have work coming in that's gonna, you know, that it's not gonna do me any favors at this stage in my career.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And you could end up like Bike Boy,
Why? What happened to Bible?
So Bike Boy did Australia's
at
Got
about the
Talent.
same time.
He did Australia's Got Talent, and he dropped a couple of times,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then said, "You're probably going to make me look shit in the edit. I understand that," which they put in the edit, and it just looked like he was incompetent and petulant, which, I'm sure we've all appeared like at moments. The petulant, probably, incompetent, definitely not. He's a very capable individual.
Yeah.
In here, come on, everybody.
Oh, Sean. Yeah, I remember Sean before he was even in our chaos.
So go on then. Let's hear some stories. Let's hear the Bike Boy stories for the people who are watching. Who are treating.
The first time I remember seeing Bike Boy was in Bath, possibly in the very late 80s. Imagine. And I think that was the first time I ran across him. And I was doing.
Is that when he was jumping the people?
Yeah. I'm not even sure if he was doing that then. I just remember he always had the same accent, very West Country, very slow. And at the time, he was on the BMX. He was great.
Yeah. But he still is to an extent.
That sort of stuff. Yeah, so he was great, and it was good. But then, even back then, we used to share that. That's a shame. That's a real shame because that picture's kind of gone now, outside the pump room.
The bath pitch. But why is it gone then?
Well, it's down to the tables on the other side of the way it's set up is you have the pump rooms which you work with your back to.
Okay.
And
I take it this is the square.
There are a couple of and you're right by the pillars. And there are a couple of cafes.
I remember a lot of people who are watching probably haven't seen this pitch. So there's a square, you've got a pub behind you, and you've got pillars to your left, right. Yeah.
You've got pillars to your left, and then far to your right is Bath Abbey.
Okay. And that's a big tourist destination, I assume, and that's where the flow is coming from.
But we all worked down by the pillars because it was a natural place. You didn't need an amplifier there. The sound literally would bounce off the walls. You were very loud. You didn't have to really project that much.
Great.
Also, the space there was good, so you could have a decent-sized crowd. And what has happened since is, it happened in the time that I was in America, is the cafes on the other side have got tables outside because we've all become a cafe society. And then the pump rooms decided they wanted some tables, so they would set up tables. They set up tables behind the pitch as well, and it just squeezed it all out, really.
And so then you were blocking the street.
Yeah, and then with the advent of the AER and the classical musicians all amped up, or the musicians just amped up, there's just no way you can compete with that kind of volume.
Well, I will ask you this then, talking about volume musicians, are you a proponent of sharing a space with musicians and queuing up with them? It's a more contemporary thing from what I can see, that we've kind of started to queue together in London, at least, in a lot of the pitches. Your expression tells 1,000 stories.
I've nothing against musicians, but
is that I'm not racist, but
I think there are some pitches that suit variety acts, and there are pitches that suit musicians. And that particular pitch that I'm talking about was a traditional variety act pitch, and it's messed up now anyway, despite the fact whether the musicians are there or not. So that's not really the issue.
Yeah.
I think the other problem that we have is the musicians tend to play for a lot longer than we do.
Yeah, and they'll do 2-hour sets.
Yeah, there's no way we don't need a 2-hour spot. We only need an hour. Really.
I will say this: in London, on the pitches where, say, like Leicester Square or Piccadilly, the pitches where we've, through different circumstances, busking London, pulling all the musicians from the side pitches, pushing them into the authorised pitches, has meant they're all sharing.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, those pitches, as we talked about in the other video, I turned around to someone one day when I finished a shit show. It's a terrible show. And one of the musicians came to the pitch. Oh, fuck, another musician on this pitch. But in the end, I think it's the only way forward, really. Because a lot of these musicians, when they spend time with us, they do what everyone else does when they're on the queuing pitches. They learn how to build a show. And instead of it being a walk-by, jukebox kind of deal, it becomes a show. It becomes something that has a start, middle, and end. It gathers. It's designed to do something.
Well, I think that's basically what I was saying. Is there are some musicians that I have no problem sharing the pitch with at all. Dave McSavage was a classic example.
Yes.
One-man band. He came and he basically did a show around music.
Came, saw, pissed people off, and conquered.
Yeah. But, I don't think Terry or David at Covent Garden would necessarily want to share the pitch or even go up.
No, I don't think.
They're happy where they are. They have their musicians pitch and it works for them. What also works for them is when it's very quiet.
Yeah. I mean, when it's really, really, really quiet, having passing traffic and passing drops and selling the odd CD, far more viable than spending half an hour to gather your 15 people together to do a show which feels a bit weird. Yeah. One of the other things, I mentioned earlier on in the video going on performers.net. And one of the other things I saw as a greenhorn, as a foundling to street performance on performers.net was someone describing the psychology of crowds. They said there was three different psychologies you get in a crowd. I know, dirty mitts. I'm washing my hands twice a day, but more than twice a day whenever I go out. I have a coal fire, so your hands get mucky. I live in a boat. It's a mucky environment. I'm not going to defend myself. Carrying on. I forgot what I was going to say. I've drank too much wine.
3 different shows.
Oh, bless you, Guy. Your memory, bless you. So 3 different kinds of shows. And these are based on the size of crowds. So when you have 10 to 20 people, they're strangers. They're a loose assortment of strangers. They're thinking individually. They're critically thinking as individuals. And then you get the medium stage of a crowd where you get... sorry, that's me. That's me beeping. I said in the last video, I turned notifications off. When we were about to start the video, I thought, oh, shit, I've got to do it. I didn't have time. So anyway. And so you've got the middle point, which is when you're looking between about 30 to 100 people. And that's a sort of semi-cohesive group. They've not quite got the group think. They're not quite behaving as one organism, but they're getting on that way to doing it. It's not quite individual thinking, but it's not quite group think. And then you have 100 to 200, 300, 400, 500 people, and that's when the group think really becomes established. And that's where you get a crowd which behaves more as one organism than a loose assortment of strangers. And I think that's really accurate. I see that's why a lot of us really smash the beginning of shows, desperately trying to get over that 100 people mark, so that our silly bullshit we do can be carried so much more by the suspension of disbelief, by the huge group of people wanting to have a good time, needing collectively to enjoy it.
Well, it's kind of like the football thing, isn't it? When you go to a football match, and you...
I've never been, so...
Sorry?
In fact, I lie. I went once when I was 13 to a football match. I went to Wolverhampton Wanderers and never again.
All right, okay. You can get the same kind of feeling, I think, going to a rock concert. It works kind of better at football matches for some reason. I don't know why. You cannot control yourself in the crowd. When people cheer, you cheer because somebody next to you, it just happens. You become one organism.
Yes, exactly.
The whole chanting, but it happens. It's not something you can literally control. It's a very organic feeling, and it's
Yeah.
feeling I think that you're talking about with having.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't go to many foot matches, but I did at one point squat a warehouse next to the Emirates Stadium. And
My daughter lives there.
In the Emirates Stadium.
Oh, she lives very next to the Emirates Stadium.
So we had this thing in the morning. I looked out my window. We'd been in a squat for about 3 weeks. And squat, in case people don't know the world, it's where you occupy an empty building that's not in use, not necessarily the owner's permission, and you try and utilize that empty space. I'll talk another time. We have Furious George next week on a Friday. He's an anarchist poet. I'll talk more about that then. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And so I was sat in this squat. It's right next to the Emirates Stadium. The Emirates Stadium holds 50,000 people. And so one day we wake up and there's a line of riot vans outside. So immediately, as soon as I see this, I panic. I'm knocking on everyone's door. I'm going, guys, we're about to be raided. Wake up, wake up, wake up. And then we realise it's a football match. They're sat outside waiting to deal with the rioting. And so we all relax a little bit more, and we go and sit on the roof, and we look down, and we watch all the police there doing their thing. And then, sure enough, within an hour, people have filled the stadium and start chanting. And you can hear 50,000 people chanting, and even sat 300-400 meters away on the roof of this pretty empty warehouse, I could feel the weight of that amount of people cheering and making noise. It felt like the closest thing I could feel like war, like when you see the armies against you and they start cheering and chanting and roaring.
Well, I think I would imagine it would have been that kind of mentality back in the olden days. Yeah, very much so. And one of the interesting things I heard, just talking about war, talking about shell shock, I watched a guy called Lindy Bage. If anyone wants to check him out, Lindy Bage on YouTube. If you're into evolutionary biology, or if you're into the psychology of ancient war, the history of ancient war, very interesting guy. And so I've forgotten again, Lindy Bage, talk about war, blah, blah, blah. Far too much wine. He was talking about shell shock and why shell shock is only a very recent evolution of a very recent thing. So he said, why did people only really get shell shock in the last 120 years? Why is this only something that's known now? And he's a guy who looked at a lot of the army's reports throughout history, throughout the Napoleonic War, throughout the civil wars throughout history. And what his theory was is when you have a sword in your hand and you're stood along your friends and the people are charging towards you, you feel like you have a way to control your destiny. You can cheer and all the people around you cheer together and you feel like you can do something. But then if you're in a trench and you're getting bombed from people miles away and you have no idea where it's going to come, you have no control over your own destiny. And this is what's believed is the reason why people have battle fatigue, which is the other name for it. I don't know why I'm talking about this. It's not about street form. It's just, it made me think. No, it's very interesting. While you were saying that about war and all these horrible things, there was a squirrel just jumping in front of me. Very nice.
How wonderful.
Yeah, it was very lovely. Yes. Oh, good.
So what do you see happening at the end of and I'm going to use the word Craig. There's a podcast kind of TV show that's done
by Billy and Paul. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I watched episode 1.
I say this again, their production values are amazing. I watched John Oliver do his newscast, which I really enjoyed. The production values on Paul and Billy's thing on Happy Times TV was better than John Oliver with his HBO well-funded TV show. So credit to them.
Well,
and they're calling.
She's now back in Bath and he's still in Las Vegas. So
it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I felt like it was, the morning TV shows where you have the two guys on the sofa. It felt like that.
Oh, yeah,
Yes, and so they termed the crisis Craig, the Craig crisis. And so, what do you think is going to happen after the Craig crisis? Do you think people are gonna flood back on the streets and it'll be like what it was before, but with an urgency to have fun, or do you think people will be pensive and worried and
I think people will
dispersed?
be pensive initially, and that will probably last for about 2 weeks, and then after that, I think things will probably return to normal.
Fair enough. I noticed that as you said that you were doing this. Is that an unconscious thing? Things will return to normal.
I don't, well, because I don't know. I mean, the other thing is that people could be pensive, and then people might want to. People might be funny about. I'm just thinking about my own show, and I have the bit where I hold hands with the 10 guys. And I'm
Hand out the
not
group first.
entirely sure how long it's going to take for people to be comfortable to do that again. So,
Well, interesting. These things do have an effect. Well, you remember when there was the machete attacks in London?
yes.
So I have a bit in my show where I'll throw a weapon down when I have all my children out, and I'll tell the children to run to the weapon as I describe they're competing for the cash as a Hunger Games scenario. Throw a weapon down. I'm sure I'm going to have to get a new reference soon because the Hunger Games is rapidly leaving the public common consciousness. And I had to stop using a dube, a fake machete, because every time I dropped the machete down, I could feel this ripple of panic and worry.
You know what was good then was I actually thought you said duvet, and I realised you said duvet.
Yeah, I mean, I could throw a duvet down, but I mean, it could be used as a weapon. I'm sure, like Steven Seagal could kill you with a duvet.
You could wear a duvet and be more scary. Yes, go on.
It depends how you look, I'm sure with your beautiful forehead and kind and gentle demeanour, you could wear a duvet in public.
I think I'd look like the Michelin Man.
You're not that fat.
No, but I would be with a duvet.
Would you think you have this? Do you have a view of yourself as being a pudged kind of guy?
No. But I don't.
So, if you had to choose, so you've done rope. Rope is kind of your discipline. It's the thing that you do as your finale in your show. If you had to choose something else, if you had to on the spot go, right, I'm going to try and form a different thing, what would you do?
Well, I could do the unicycle as well. I mean, I've done both. The reason I stopped doing the unicycle initially was because at the time when I started at Covent Garden, everybody was riding a unicycle, and I had the rope and nobody else was doing the rope, so it made me unique. If I was to do something else, I like my roller bowler routine where I'm balancing. I'm now doing a thing with a Viking helmet.
Okay.
I have plates spinning on both horns, and I have another plate here. I'm on a roller bowler that looks like a Viking ship. You can go to my website. You can see me do that.
There you go, and we will put the website at the end of the video.
All right, it's on the medieval and Renaissance page.
Do you get laid at Renaissance festivals?
Well, hold on, let me finish that. That's a great. I really enjoy doing that, and it's all done to Ride of the Valkyrie. But the only problem I have doing it outside, it's very hard with the wind. It's very hard to keep all the plates going.
Very hard, that wind, isn't it? Very hard.
So, I mean, really, that's part of the problem of being a street performer is you have to account for wind. And I think so many jugglers cannot street perform because all their props are wind affected. So
and I'll be honest,
my cigar boxes are really heavy, much heavier than people would use in a stage show. I use the knives. I use the reason I use the crystal balls or the balls is not because it's just they're heavy.
Just fuck all to those things.
It's all your props have to be super heavy, otherwise you can't use them.
Well, you have that moment of.
Yeah.
I will say this: considering that a lot of our performing friends are unemployed now, when we do go back to work, considering the lentil and bean diet we're all eating, wind will be a huge issue. Certainly is for me at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think the beer helps either.
I think Pepe may disagree with you there.
Bless him. Bless him.
What do you think about this thing of artists, particularly street artists, and alcoholism?
If you're talking about Pepe, was one of my closest friends.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to say next. I'm just interested in the condition of performance, the rush of performance, and the thing which seems to happen a lot, which is the use of alcohol or some other kind of self-medication to manage things.
Not just alcohol. One thing I would say is I worked with when I was in Key West, there was an act that worked in Mallory Square. He was the biggest act in Mallory Square, full stop. I mean, he used to do constantly. I mean, when he was on, everybody else just had to stop.
This is like a Charlie Burnett kind of situation.
Yeah, he had a huge drug debt. He would spend. I'm not really sure how much he spent on it. He was doing $800 shows regularly.
Wow.
And he never really had that much money. And he had the biggest drugs problem I've ever known. And I actually...
Was it you who used the phrase, isn't it weird how the biggest shows have the biggest drug problems? Was that you who used that? Yeah, it was you who used that phrase.
And it was based on him and a couple of other people who are fairly obvious who was about... But yeah, I mean... I remember Pepe back in the day. Pepe would go and do a show. His show. Pepe and I would start. We'd go to the draw.
Just very quickly before we go on, just so people know, Pepe is a mime. He was probably one of the greatest mimes, street clown mimes who ever existed. Yeah, carry on. I'm trying to give you context.
By a long way. He knew exactly what happened. Brian's had a shower, which is unusual.
He missed. I don't think he missed much, did he?
Anything. We go to the drop. We'd then go back and we'd smoke pot for a couple of hours, and then we'd come back and sober up a little bit. Well, I would.
Right. Yeah, he would. It's the same.
Then we would go traditionally to the pub. It would start as soon as they opened, so 11 o'clock, 11:30. We'd be in the pub, have a couple of drinks. He would, on a good day, we'd get out of there. I'd manage to get away and do my show and go home. On a bad day, we'd drink, and he would then pick fights for me. He'd
invite you to fight someone for him.
Well, basically, we'd be drinking, and I remember once it was a classic thing that the firemen were all on strike.
Yeah.
And so they were all up in the pub like this, and we went up to the pub and doing our normal routine like this, and all of a sudden, like, 3 guys want to fight me. Okay, fair enough. And I normally manage to get away. In fact, I always got away. But that happened like 2 or 3 times, 3 or 4 times. I remember the worst one though. He picked a fight with a bunch of squaddies for me.
Oh dear!
Really difficult. Dear.
I mean, Pepe's 4'9.5" for nothing, isn't he?
That was horrible. And then, but the other thing was, of course, he'd do his show and he'd have a massive bag of money. We'd go to the Essex Serpent. He'd stick the money on the table and we would just drink it.
But that's, from what I heard, that was the old street performer's life in the 80s, was you'd make the bag of money, you'd go to the pub, you'd put it in the pub, and then that would be the day, and then you do the same tomorrow, rinse and repeat.
Yep, except for Shandy. And Shandy is now retired.
He owns 2 houses. He's moved to Portugal. He's doing quite well for himself. God, what a loser.
He's done really well.
So,
I'm really proud.
Since we're talking about Pepe, would you like to talk about his show a little bit? I've never seen his show. I'd love to.
He would be able to. His following was superb. He would be able to.
Can you describe what following is just a little bit for people who don't know?
Sorry?
Can you describe what following is, just for people who don't know? Because some of the people who watch the video aren't streeties, just so they get an idea of what following is.
So basically, following is you mimic somebody. Literally, you follow them, and you pull on some of their actions. So if somebody has a limp, you would walk behind them and you'd start limping with the same leg.
Okay.
If somebody, I think that's basically, I think that describes it, doesn't it?
So you walk behind someone and have an element of mimicry or storytelling as you walk behind them.
Or, for example, a woman might walk past pushing a pram. You would then get down on your knees and hold her hands as if you were one of her children.
So you create some kind of narrative play as people are walking past.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
He was very, very good. He could immediately get in stride with them after one beat. You know, he would be straight there. So he would go behind somebody and he would be them. He was just very, very good at it. He could see what was happening sort of 3 ahead. So he'd be doing something here, he could notice something over there, and he'd be able to go straight. For example, let's say he'd have a wig for a bald guy, and he'd offer the bald guy a wig, but he'd be following a guy, and he would be able to go straight to the bald guy and give him the wig
because it was pre-planned.
Yeah, there was no gap at all. He used to.
And
the best one that I ever saw, though, the one that I liked the best, was the steps coming up from the toilet.
Yes.
Pick one person, they would go to the toilet, he'd get the whole crowd, and he'd fill the whole West Piazza. He would go and he'd get them all to clap the guy coming out of the toilet. Now, the guy could have been in the toilet for 2 or 3 minutes, so he might have done other things in between. But when that guy came out of the toilet, he was right there, and the whole crowd went off as he came out of the toilet.
Then I suppose the funny thing would be the response of the person realizing that 300 people are looking at them, clapping at them, as they've just taken a piss or a shit.
Yeah. Well, no, he just had a shit. Yes.
Yeah.
And it was just great. And he never. People liked it when he was following them. He was never. He would occasionally. Sometimes I've seen people lately when they grab somebody's leg and they won't let go. They'd always walk away with a smile afterwards. He never.
I mean, I think that's the thing. I've had problem with this. I'm quite a big guy.
Huh?
I don't see myself as a big guy, right. But I've been told by other people that I'm a big guy, and so I do bits of following, and quite regularly people will be annoyed or they'll feel like I'm menacing in some way. Whereas Pepe being 4'0", I think he. Are you reading Brian's comment there with your cross? I saw you look in the corner.
I mean, what isn't true? That's what I want.
What's that? So what you have to remember is he'll comment there. He'll take 30 seconds to turn around.
Yeah, but I don't think it upset people. I think what Brian's saying is that Pepe did upset people. Yes, he did upset people as it got in later life. But
I'll be honest with you. I personally don't have a problem with upsetting people, as you know.
Right.
I think if you're a clown, you show a mirror to the world. And the world is not always smiling, I had an instance years and years ago. Some of my favourite moments in my show, and I know a lot of performers will disagree with me here, but I quite like conflict because I like showing the reality of conflict to people in a fairly harmless environment. So I had a moment where I used a Byron Bertram line. I heard him do it years ago. I loved it. I very rarely steal lines now, but he's a good friend. I thought maybe I could get away with it. It's okay. And the line was, as a lady walked past wearing a fake leopard skin jacket, I went, "Oh my God, look, she found a cheetah. She killed the cheetah. She skinned the cheetah. She is wearing the cheetah." And this lady walked past, ignored me. Got my kid out. I started doing my routine. At that time, my kid routine was placed in music. We were on kid, doing some muckabout kind of stuff. And the lady stomps back into the crowd 5 minutes later. And I remember the lady. And I can see on her face, I think, you've got a gripe with me. And because this line is so innocuous, because this line is so obviously farcical, your outrage is going to be fucking hilarious. So I turned the music off. I said to the kid, "You wait here a minute. I'm going to come back to you. Don't worry." And I took the microphone off as if I was talking to her one-to-one. But in reality, what I'm doing is I'm holding the mic in between us so that I'm picking up both our conversation. And she turns around to me and she goes, "How dare you? How dare you? How dare you imply that I killed a cheetah? I am a vegetarian." Exactly. As she's saying this, I'm thinking, how beautiful is this? Because you're watching someone have this outrage when she's obviously not understood the entire point of the joke is it's kind of an anti-fur joke. It's designed to, through farce, talk about something uncomfortable, which is the wearing of fur. Mm-hmm. So she carries on and she goes, you have fucking slandered me in public. So then I turn around to the crowd and I go, look, watch this. It's not slander. Miss, unfold your arms. Gravity's going to sag them anyway. Look, sir, take your hands out of your pockets. We can all see you're entertaining yourself. I was young. 2 hack lines one after another. But nonetheless, I was just trying to elicit the fact that none of this is serious. And she keeps going. And she goes, you, fuck you, mister. And as soon as she says that, a lady from the crowd who's the parent of my child volunteer goes, "How dare you fucking swear in front of my child?" And then she starts running to attack this lady, and the husband's holding her back. And I walk up to the lady. I say, "Okay, I've got this. Don't worry. I have this under control. It's okay." And she looks at me, and instantly when she sees that I'm okay, she's kind of okay. I don't think she's necessarily worried about the swearing in front of the kid as much as she's annoyed that her kid was having a good time and this lady's ruined it. So I turn around to the lady and I say, "Look, everybody's having a good time. This was a joke that you haven't understood. I'm sorry." And she goes, well, thank you for apologizing. Why don't you apologize more real? And so I go, "Look, I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry." And then she kicks me in the shin and walks off. Oh. And as she kicks me in the shin, and bless her, she really tried to hurt me. And if I wasn't in the show and full of adrenaline, it might have been quite painful. But at the time, she could have hit me with a baseball bat and I'd go, "Thank you very much." And so as she walks away, I turn around to the crowd and I say, "Shall we continue the show?" Massive uproar of applause. And in that moment, what you've done is you've watched someone have this kind of misplaced indignation and go through emotions that usually are saved for true horror, saved for really horrible things. But in this case, it's me jokingly in fur and she's wearing fur when she's not. So the entire audience have got to watch through this human drama that means very little. The lady's going to walk away, think I'm a complete prick and get on with her day. But nonetheless, people have seen something. And I think there's value in that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've had quite a lot of conflict in my life. Maybe I'm more comfortable with conflict than other people. I don't know.
Well, I think that's fair enough. I think if you're comfortable with I don't think people like to see that much conflict on the street.
You can call me a cunt, guy. It's okay. I don't mind. Call me a cunt if you want to.
I'm not going to call you a cunt. No. And I think you're able to get away with it because of your personality, but not everybody's going to be able to get away with it. This is one of the things about watching people do Gazzo shows, and the number of kids, like, fresh-faced little boys doing...
And here's the gay guy!
Attempting to, slag off people. You can't do that. You haven't got the age, you haven't got the... it's not your personality. Just stop. Please stop.
Interesting thing Stuart Lee said is Stuart Lee said that his character didn't make sense when he was young. And as he got older, he grew into his character. And I think he did. Yeah. I think when you see young people doing these grizzled old characters that they've obviously seen from people they love, it feels quite dislocated. Yeah.
Oh, I would agree with you totally. And the other side of that is people should remember that they're older now and please put their shirts on.
Are you trying to tell me something?
Oh, I'm not telling you anything. I'm just saying. I'd forgotten you take your shirt off.
I do, yeah.
But there's a fine line. It's all right when we're Quinn. I mean, all the young women want to look at Quinn. But in 15 years' time, he might look different.
I'll be honest. I wish Brian took his shirt off in the show. I'd love to.
Brian was going to do a hula hoop routine. I don't know what happened.
He should do.
I know.
But I did a thing a few years ago where I shaved the top of my head, and I shaved basically all of this bit off to give myself what I call the nutkins for people who are fans of British children's television of my era. And I like the fact that I made myself look despicable or not despicable, not evil, but I looked awful. I didn't look like someone who understood how other people viewed them. And I think there's some quality to that, you know. I like the idea of someone who looks awful going out there and reveling in the fact that they don't care that people think they look awful. And surely for all the fatty, bumbatty, you know, people in the crowd, people who also feel this worry, that's a liberating thing.
Different thing. I think a lot of people look at them, are looking at themselves through rose-tinted glasses. You know, there are performers that still think they're young and still think they look like they did when they were in their 20s.
Are we talking about ourselves here?
No. And they need to get, people need a reality check, really. So,
but when you say reality check, is that because of what other people think of them and the way they look, or?
You've got to move your show. You've got to change your show. As you get older, you need to change your show. You need to stop doing the stuff that you were doing as a 20-year-old. It just doesn't work.
I feel like you're my father now.
Huh?
I feel like you're my father.
Certainly not. I've got enough children of my bloody own. Oh, look at that. That's interesting because Petty said this has gone on longer than Stickman's show.
I wouldn't say that. Hey, we're on 81 minutes, which is almost an hour and a half. This isn't as long as Stickman's show.
He could do longer.
He does do longer, regularly.
Yeah.
A man with 3 finales.
Good.
3 finales and a box full of dreams.
Right. Yeah, you asked me about my favourite show earlier, right at the beginning. And now I would say at the moment, my favourite show is The Street Shirkers, which is Dan and Kim, just because of the huge amount of skill that's in it. He does Seal Wheel, and just their partner acrobatics is just amazing. I like them. For comedy value, I like my friend Hilby, who's a juggler. He does loads and loads of he does a lot of stock lines, but he delivers them with a German accent. And I mean, it's great, really, really good. Just the positivity of it's really good. So I think
just a quick note, I'm sending a couple of messages. If you want to see them, just check host chat.
Go on, sorry.
I'll send a couple of messages. If you want to see them, just check in host chat. But I really feel bad for interrupting you. Please carry on.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, comedy-wise, I think Hilby is just hilarious. I mean, just very, very good, very positive. And I was
Richard
trying not to laugh.
Is that Richard Philby?
Sorry?
Is that Richard Philby?
Richard Philby?
Were you saying Philby's show?
No, I said Hilby. Michael
Hilby.
Yeah,
it's a fair mistake to make.
You won't get him. He works in America. So.
Fair enough. There's a weird thing, isn't there? Because there's not a lot of cross-pollination, bar the fringe, between the American School of Street and the European School of Street. I have a couple of friends who I'm going to get in the show, hopefully, in the next few weeks, called Hacky and Moppy, who are possibly my favourite cabaret act in the world, father and son duo. Right. Silly, beautiful, circus-trained. And they are German, but the majority of the work is in Seattle and places like that. And every performer I talk to in Europe doesn't have an idea who they are, despite the fact that they are the best, in my opinion. Some of the best.
Yeah, well, I think this is one of the problems that you got with, and I think the Busker Hall of Fame is a great thing. But one of the issues with it is we are sort of the 3 tribes, or 4 even, 5, you could say. You've got the English or the British, you've got the Australians, and you have the Americans and Canadians. The Americans and Canadians, same thing. And then after that, you have the South Americans and the Europeans, which...
The traffic light jugglers.
Yeah, which is a completely different thing again.
very much so.
So to have the Busker Hall of Fame, it's always slightly slanted. I think it's very slanted towards the Canadian market, the Canadian festival market.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is great.
Robert Nelson was the guy who started that. Robert Nelson, I never met him. I never saw his work.
It, but, before,
He's a Yank, I assume.
Sorry?
He's a Yank, I assume.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
Yeah, right. He was a Yank. So it's got this North American kind of bias to it. And it seems also as well like it's the North American festival circuit, the international festival circuit. So your traffic light jugglers or your people like Hacky and Mappy, who seem to be more like the underground kind of bluesy Seattle cabaret. Those guys, despite the fact that they are probably, as I say, in my opinion, some of the best cabaret workers in the world. It was beautiful to watch them work in. I went to work in a festival in Germany called the Berlin Lach, which translates to the Berlin Laughing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I watched him, Hacky, which is the oldest guy there, Moppy, who is his son, and then I watched them with Moppy's son, who is about 4 years old. And you basically watch the training of a young child to be a performer. So Hacky and Moppy are doing their show. They're doing their really interesting stuff they do. So one of the things they'll do, they'll have hula hoops, and they'll spin a hula hoop on one finger, throw it to the next guy, who'll throw it back to them, and then more hula hoops come in until they're juggling like 7 hula hoops on fingers between each other. Yeah. Really high, quirky skill. And their son, Moppy's son, the younger guy's son, the third generation, is just fucking around the stage. He's picking up props and playing with them and dropping them and doing his own fucking thing. And any time that it comes to a point where they need to do something and he's interfering, they go, "You're doing great. You're doing amazing. Take the prop and carry on." And you see this thing of getting the kid comfortable on stage. And that's all they're doing is they're letting him fuck around on there, letting him just experience being there with no pressure and no consequence. Mm. And it was such a beautiful thing to see. Something that in most things, in every field of the world we've lost, is this idea of tutelage. And you see the tutelage happening there.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. You'd say that. I think there was also a time in Covent Garden when we had Nick was the classic example. Little Nick.
Nicholas.
No, not Nick. Nicholas. Nick, who became a security guard actually. He worked with Grom for a while.
Okay.
Young Nick.
Grommy. Good Welsh name.
We were his only influences, and he would come on, and he'd literally do all of us in his show. So he'd start and he'd have all my mannerisms, he'd do me for a bit. Then he'd be Dave Evans, and he'd take on all Dave Evans, and then he'd be someone, and he'd be Ben Langley, and he would literally be all of us.
So it's almost like he's curating personalities.
Yeah, and that was how he learned, and I think that was a good thing. And he actually eventually came up with his own show.
Well, this is the quandary I had, and I was talking to Dave about this today. Yeah. So my reflex, after chatting with Brian a lot, and after really trying to be more original and trying to have work that is more my own, after being a hack and after doing the exact thing that you described your friend doing, where I basically became a curator of other people's material, I sat and I wrote material after understanding and getting this. Sorry, I'm not advertising. I'm not doing this on purpose, but I've run out of cigarettes now, so this is my only option to get nicotine. And with this amount of wine, I need some fucking nicotine. So I learned essentially by doing the Gazzo lines. I was a young guy. I looked grizzled enough to get away with it, but I did the Gazzo lines to good effect. And then I watched Melvin, and I'd infer, I'd start working in this kind of bitter, horrible, bitter, nasty kind of character. And then I went and sat in Covent Garden. I watched Sparky Mark do his Saturday night show every day of the week after 7, which I think is probably one of the best Saturday night shows ever created. It's perfect for a party. And each step of the way, I acquired these characters. And I built my show around emulation. And now, after many years, hopefully developing something which is my own character and my own voice, I want to tell people who are beginning, to do their own voice from the start, because I always battle against being hack. My reflex is to draw upon what I know, as opposed to express what I think or what I feel. And so I want to tell people beginning to be original from the start, but I'm a fucking hypocrite because I wasn't.
Well, I think it's all right not to be original when you start. I think if you're young and you don't have it, and if you only watching street performers, then you're going to do street performance stuff. That's the way it is. I mean,
it's the way you learn. So what do you think about this whole idea of originality on the street, doing your own stuff, whether you do become a curator or whether you try and make your own voice? What do you think about that stuff?
I think, having just said what I said, I think it's okay when you're young for a couple of years, but after you've been doing it for a couple of years, you need to find your own material.
I think that's fair. Brian says no. Brian, I will have an interview with you very soon. You can express your opinion for that.
Brian, Brian's entitled to his opinion. Brian has the most original show in the world.
He wrote it and thought it out, But I understand what you're saying. Okay, mate, we get you. I understand what you're saying is it's kind of like we're laughing at the comments if you're looking later. Yeah, I mean, Brian, would you like to join in the chat? I can get you in this chat if you would like to interject now. Would you like to join into the chat? I can send you a link. While you think about that, I do understand this idea of training wheels. Like, if people are painters, when people are learning how to paint, they emulate the classics. Yeah. They learn from the classics and they develop after. When you have musicians and musicians writing songs, Brian, I'm going to send you a link. Join us. I will allow you to express your opinion live. So when musicians are writing music, the way every musician learns is by
copying other
people's songs. And then when they play those other people's songs, they learn how to write music. Now, the difficulty is that they don't go out and play other people's songs initially straight away. What people tend to do is they tend to play at home with other people's songs. And then after playing at home with other people's songs, then they write their own music. Whereas with performing, you can't practice at home, really.
No,
a comedian,
especially street performing as well, you have to do it in front of an audience. So you have to get comfortable with an audience. You have to learn how to work a crowd. I think possibly Brian and I might have a slightly different angle from you because we didn't have anybody to learn from, particularly.
Yeah.
We had to, then, today it's a lot easier for, all the circus schools and everything like that.
But circus schools do fuck all to make you a street performer. Come on, you've seen people arrive on the pitch with a great costume, great skills and die.
I'm also thinking about people that, watch on YouTube, and it's a lot easier to find the stuff today than it was for us. We literally had to go out and discover it.
Well, 100%. When I began, I did watch people on YouTube. I saw people, I believe it or not, when I was beginning, I saw Yogi Laser in New York with his legs around his head going, "Hey, everybody, look, I'm a pretzel." I saw all these different things when I began. When I started doing jokes because I watched the Gazzo show. And I took those jokes and I incorporated them into my very simple, if you want to say trick, say yeah. And all I do is, as an interjection, I do Gazzo lines. Because I didn't do performing arts school. I didn't ever really imagine myself being a performer. I just quit a job and had no money and went on the street and did contact juggling, became good enough at it to make money. And then the filming and the sort of being objectified, being treated as an object, made me really bitter. At the same time, having a few of the artists performing next to me going, "This guy doesn't have a show. I have prepared material. Maybe want to look deeper." So I looked at the Gazzo lines. I incorporated those Gazzo lines. And then from there, things evolved. So I did have something that people didn't have in the beginning. And the reason I tell people who are beginning now not to do the stock is because I battle against having that stock in my head. If I panic in a show and I need to make a laugh because I feel uncomfortable, I'll draw back on that stock, and I don't want to. I want to speak my own mind, but it's quite hard with panic.
I think that you can do stock lines if they're appropriate, and I think the reason that they're stock lines is because they work in certain situations. I don't think it's bad to do a stock line. I think it's bad if your whole show is stock lines.
But if you view this as a piece of artwork that has your communication in it, rather than a piece of craft, and this is the whole battle I believe that happens is between art and craft.
It's just an art, though, is it? It's also an art that we have to get a hat at the end of the day.
Yeah.
There is a fine line. You can be Jack, for example, and Brian. Their shows are completely original and unique. But do they make any money? No. And
Jack makes some, but I don't think he doesn't make money because I have Brian Reed calling me right now. I'm just going to try and get him into the video. Hey, everybody, all the tech people watching. We're just going to try and get Brian in. I think this will be worth it. Hey, mate, how you doing? I'm supposed to be filling in now. You go take a wee, you middle-aged prostitute fucking bastard. Go, fucking empty you wanker. Brian, so if you follow the link, click on it. I tell you what, you put the phone down, call me again, and I will have you on speaker on my laptop, and hopefully people can hear you, okay? Okay, nice one, mate. So we're going to have Brian. He's not going to be on video, I think, because maybe his technology can't, the tech he has there can't necessarily deal with that one, but he's going to call me up, I'm going to answer it, and basically Brian is going to call us both a cunt. And then we'll see how that goes from there. Okay. The wonders of modern technology. We now have Brian on the line. The people who are watching, if you can't hear Brian, just let me know, okay? I'm going to try and get this multimedia thing going on right now. So we're loading. So for everyone while we're loading, I've really battled with this thing my entire performing life. Really, since I talked to Brian, my big thing always was that, it's trying to get over the idea of craft and art. Nice to see you back. How was the piss?
Wash my hands.
Okay, so we're going to have to try this a different way.
Okay.
Can everyone hear Brian?
I can hear him.
I'm not on your page anymore. Actually, I can put my laptop on as well.
Well, Brian, maybe put your laptop on and then you can join in the chat.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Guy, can you hear him?
I can hear him.
Okay. You're in the room, Brian.
What's that?
You're in the room. If you want to be in the video, open your laptop, get Chrome. But for now, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it now. So figure out.
Well, tell us what you think in the interim, mate.
Yeah, okay. It's like we're artists, yeah.
Yes.
If it's like if you're just taking somebody else's voice, you're not an artist. You're just
an entertainer.
I don't know.
I wouldn't disagree with you.
Impressionists, as such. You know what I mean? It's like it's not art. You're just doing things that's already done, and that's not art. And every time somebody goes out on the streets and just does the same bollocks what other people are doing, they're like not producing art. They just produce it. They're money-making show to make money, and that's not art.
I'd agree with you, but I think you have to start when you're a kid. If you have no other influences.
Right. We've got one person talk at once.
Think like they're artists, but they're not really. They're just buskers, they're doing Bob Dylan songs in a fucking corner somewhere. Musicians, yeah. If you say musicians play other people's songs, they learn to play other people's songs. But like if they try to record them, they've got to get permission from loads of people before they can actually do that. And quite a lot of the time, they get told to fuck off. And writing books, plays, and that. If you take a piece of somebody else's book and put it in your book, you get sued. And films as well, sort of thing. You know what I mean? If somebody makes a copy of another movie, they got to get permission and pay for it. When you're busking, for some reason, they think that's all right. I'll just take that. I'll just take this.
Well, to be fair, Brian. In fact, 1 second, Brian. You do see a lot of buskers play other people's music.
They're pretty much the same. And we are basically an art form. And if you go to a museum, you just see the Mona Lisa everywhere you bloody go. You stop going to museums. You go, I've seen that.
I think that is a fair point.
Did you get that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point too.
When you start off as an artist, you're not great, but you learn something. But at least you try to be an artist. You know what I mean?
One thing I will say, Brian.
If you play the most leader and trying to sell it, you get. I don't know if you can see it.
I can hear you, Brian. One thing I will say, brother, make a point and then let other people answer it just so we can have a to and fro. So you made a point. Let's hear what Guy's got to say about it.
Okay.
Well, I'd agree with him. I'd say yes. But I think when people are very young, if they have no other influences other than other street performers and they want to be a street performer, then what choice do they have other than to do other people's material until they get their own? You shouldn't do other people's material after you've been on the street for a year. But initially, okay, I understand where kids are coming from. It's not. I'm not. Don't even like it when people do other people's material. I would prefer it if everybody could just come on and do original stuff. But if somebody wants to become a street performer and they have no other influences, then I think it's fair enough for a while.
Well, I definitely, without a question, I would not have been able to effectively make my own show when I began. I wouldn't have. Would I be better off now if I would have gone through the years-long process to get there? Maybe. Brian, by all means, let us know what you think.
There's a big delay there.
You can hear the delay, yeah?
Yeah.
No, it's just bugs. No, you see, like, sorry. Influence. You're saying your whole life is just watching a street show. You do art. You go to school, you meet people, they're all influences. You just chose not to use them except for street performers.
We didn't have the luxury of being able to go to school to learn the art form we do. We have to learn it on the job. So,
Brian, have you got your laptop on? Can you follow the link I gave you? I'm going to put the phone down now because the lag is fucking awful. Follow the link. I'm going to send you the link again, okay? Hang on 1 second, mate. Follow the link I sent you. Click on it with Chrome. I'll see you in a second, brother. Nice one, mate.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. I get what he's saying. I really do.
He's saying too, and I agree with him. But we didn't have the luxury of going to school to learn what we do.
Can I ask you a favour? I need a piss. Can you cover for me?
I can cover for you. So here I am, covering for Matt. Matt lives in a boat. If you've ever seen Matt's boat, it's quite interesting. It's kind of like a dumpster on the water. It's this blue fiberglassy thing. And actually, I'm a bit worried about all the boaties at the moment because I'm actually thinking with the whole COVID-19 thing, who is pumping them out? Are their tanks getting really, really full? They probably are. They probably are. In fact, the canal must really stink shit. In fact, well, anyway, here I am covering. You think I'd come up with something better to say, but I haven't yet. There you go. You might want. Oh, he's back. That's a relief.
I've been to my bladder. I'm sorry, as guys know more than me, as a man ages, his bladder becomes less of a vault and more of a waterfall. So I get what he's saying, right? And this is the thing. If I would have began performing with every single person around me ardently telling me, you've got to be original, you can't do anything else, you can only do your own thing, maybe I would have a much more original piece of work now. Maybe I wouldn't rely on hack every time I panic. Maybe I would have something that wasn't. I mean, I fucking hate the tennis racket. Maybe I wouldn't have the tennis racket. Maybe I would be doing a piece that would be fuck knows what.
Good. I'm glad they are. Yeah. Sorry, I was just wondering about how your sewage tanks are holding up.
I've got to talk about sewage, I have a Thetford camping toilet. So if anyone's ever used that, it's basically a box that you piss and poo in. And once it's full up, you go to a place where you pour it in, like a big toilet called Nelson. Yep. And that's the joy of the sewage systems of living on a boat in London.
Oh, how lovely. How lovely. That's good.
Well,
is anybody going to the pumping stations?
I think people still are. I think they have to. Definitely shit happens.
Definitely. Okay. Is that loud enough? Do you think? Good.
Silver. So we're reaching now. We're on 6 minutes. That makes no sense. We're on 1 hour, 6 minutes, I'd assume. We've definitely done longer than 6 minutes.
I think we've been nearly 2 hours.
Are we really on nearly 2 hours? Wow. And all the people who've been watching this time, thank you for watching.
Amazing. I think Brian's right, because Brian's saying back in the 80s, every show was different, and every show was different. And I think the problem is people cottoned on that if they followed a formula, they could make money. And this is the thing that you've got. And okay, you've got to balance out whether you want to make money or you want to be completely original. And if you want to be completely original, I would say it's going to be very hard to make, bank.
Well, I think it's a tougher journey. It's a tougher journey because you've got to discover structures that work for you as opposed to structures that work,
Yeah. Well, yes. And to an extent, no, I don't think I can really say that. I mean, even because Silver's online now, Silver's show is original. It is an original show. But it is structured in a way that it makes money.
Yeah, if you ask him, he used to.
Yeah, and even Brian's show is structured in a way that it will make money. It has a start, it has a middle, it has an end. So
but all kind of digestible media has that. It's this thing to be enjoyed. Even if you aren't going to make money from it, you still kind of need a start, a middle, and an end for something to be appreciated. It needs to be a journey where you start off somewhere, you have a trajectory, and then you get there.
Yes.
The thing is, I'll be honest, as an entertainer nowadays, I look back on the mystical, storied 80s when I was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as being this heyday of beautiful creativity where everyone was really testing and finding the medium and finding out how it worked. And it seems like a beautiful time.
Well, you can say that, but, you've also got to remember as well, there are pictures of people doing the cups and balls on the pyramid walls.
Yes.
So, you want to talk about originality?
Is the transcript of Gazo lines on the pyramid walls?
Oh, he probably wrote them.
Yes. I agree, definitely. There is no doubt that our industry suffers from a really bad case of hack, though. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, definitely, and it really annoys me. And I think there's nothing worse than watching a bad hack.
And I think it's to our collective detriment. I do think Brian's right. I think the reason why Covent Garden, at least, doesn't get the repeat subscription, we don't get people coming back week after week after week, is because every show hits the same points, because those points are well known and established as the points you hit to make cash. And I think it's to our collective detriment in the long run that our place isn't a cultural focal point anymore, you know?
Do you not think we're a cultural focal point anymore?
By the sounds of it, at least, and this is only because of stories, because I wasn't there. By the sounds of it, in the 80s, you had people coming there as if it was the creative cultural hub. People came there to see new, interesting shit.
Yeah. Well, yes.
People don't do that nowadays. We get tourists there nowadays who are just passing through to get the kind of Disney experience of a street show.
Well, yeah, I think the pitch has changed dramatically. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there in the 80s. I wasn't even there. I mean, I only arrived in the 90s.
Yeah, me either. Me either. And I suppose it is very easy to look at what was before and see it in rose-tinted spectacles. Yeah. Wasn't it great back then?
I think really you need to talk to Brian about that.
Definitely. And whenever Brian can sort his fucking technology out, we will. Guy.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure to talk. It really has.
Good.
It's been wonderful. I think we've reached a natural point. I asked you to stay on the line. I'll chat with you after the video's over. For everyone else who's there, thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this again. If you want to support it, God knows I'm going to a fucking food bank, so if you can, it'd be wonderful. In my list, there'll be a Patreon. There'll be a PayPal link if you want to do an on-off drop. I will make sure Guy's Patreon is in there as well. For now, I love you. On Friday at 9 p.m. British summertime, me and Byron will be doing joke workshopping. It's going to be hopefully funny non-stop. We'll be banging it out. I think it'll be one of the better shows we have coming in the next few weeks, so please check it out. For now, I love you all. I believe Guy loves you all.
I love you all.
Mwah. Ciao for now, beautiful people.
Bye.